The morning started like 1,000 other plains mornings. Low light spilling slow over the pasture, fence posts in their usual obedience, the wind walking through the grass with the tired gait of late summer. Thomas Morgan rose before the sun tipped the ridge, boiled coffee black enough to remember hard days, and stepped out onto the porch with the mug warming his hands. The air was still, but not the honest kind of still. It was the kind that holds its breath. He had learned over years of watching horizons that some days arrive already tilted. You do not see the danger on their face. You feel it under their skin. The birds were quieter. The sound from the highway 3 miles off seemed to bend and thin. Even Juniper, tied out near the little paddock, lifted her head and watched south longer than made sense. The forecast the night before had said storms possible, strong cells, rotation not ruled out. Forecasts were the language of town men and screens. Thomas preferred the language of clouds. Off to the west, a line was already forming, low and dark, too organized for a casual shower. The top edges of it boiled up like water over a hot stone. That meant heat. That meant lift. That meant trouble. He set the mug down and moved as men move when work is chosen for them. He opened the big barn, slid doors all the way back so nothing would be ripped from half latches. He checked the tie rings. He threw a couple of extra bales into the interior where flying things would not find them. He looked toward the low pasture where the geldings had been on grass since dawn. And then he looked farther, to the back field where the Stallion stood. Valor. That was the name he'd given the big bay years ago, not because he was dramatic, but because sometimes a horse shows you his whole ledger in the first 5 minutes. Valor had been hard as iron to start, softer than bread once he understood who was speaking to him. Deep chest, black points, a narrow blaze that stopped respectful of one eye. He was not the sort you forgot to count in the morning. He was out in the back field, nose to the wind, reading the same page of weather Thomas was. The first gust came through hot, too hot. Not a cooling wind ahead of rain, but the exhale of something large drawing breath. The cottonwoods along the creek shivered only on one side, leaves flashing silver and then dull again. Thomas felt the hair rise on his arms. He whistled once, sharp. The geldings raised their heads, chewed and began drifting toward him in that shoulder roll way that said they trusted his urgency more than the weather's. He swung the side gate wide and let them through, clapping the last on the rump when he slowed to look for more clover. In 5 minutes, the front pen was full of heads looking for hay and reassurance. That left Valor. Thomas grabbed a halter and lead from the nail by the door, slung them over his arm, and started across the yard at a long ground-eating walk. Above him, the sky thickened. The low, dark shelf cloud had pushed farther east, dragging behind it a curtain of lighter cloud that seemed to twist at the edges. Lightning spidered sideways in the far distance. Thunder did not boom yet. It grumbled as if clearing its throat. The back field was open and high, with only a run-in shed and a few cottonwoods near the fence. Valor liked it that way. He liked to see what was coming. He saw Thomas at 100 yards and walked to meet him, ears forward, eyes bright. Mane already starting to lift in the rising wind. "Come on, big man," Thomas said. "Voice steady, because voice must be steady when the sky isn't. We're going in." Valor blew once, not in protest, but in acknowledgement. He was a horse who believed people when they sounded certain. Thomas slipped the halter on without a fight and turned him toward the barn. They had made it halfway across the field when the wind changed. It did not just gust. It arrived. It came in low and hard from the southwest, hot and wet and spinning. The grass all lay down at once, as if some giant hand had passed over it. The cottonwoods bent and did not spring back. The air began to roar, but not the way wind roars through trees. This was a deeper sound, a freight train in a barrel sound, the sound of air angry at being moved. Thomas looked up. The cloud above them had lost its straight, marching look. Their lowering had dropped from the main base, rounded, smooth, green-black around the edges. Dust at the ground started to lift and circle. He saw, a mile off, a thin finger of rotation begin to reach, searching for the earth like something that had forgotten where it was born. "Damn," he said. And Valor heard the change in his tone, tossed his head, and began to dance on the line. "It's all right." "It's all right," Thomas said. But now he was moving faster, half jogging, tugging the big stallion toward the yard. Tornadoes were not new on this land. But most years they chose another county, another draw. Most years they passed like threats. This one was hunting. Behind them from the south came a second sound. A low roar of breaking and being moved. Dust rose from the neighbor's fallow field. A piece of tin far away flashed up into the air and disappeared. Thomas did the math. Barn was 200 yards. House was closer, but not built for this. The storm cellar was on the far side of the barn. He could make it. Could he make it with a 1,200-pound stallion wired tight to sky noise? Valor snorted, eyes white around the edges now. The line went taut, then slack, then taut again. He did not want to run toward wind. He wanted to turn and face it, the way proud things do. "Don't do that," Thomas said through his teeth. "Not today." The lowering in the cloud thickened. It reached again, and this time found ground. A dark column formed, at first thin, then fatter, then full. It did not touch so much as it chose. Dirt spun, then debris, then larger things. The funnel tilted and began to move northeast, toward the ranch. Thomas broke into a run. Valor came with him, half rearing, half lunging, not out of disobedience, but because everything around them was now wrong. The air was wrong. The light was wrong. The birds were gone. The wind bore things. Grass, dust, a scrap of paper that slapped across Valor's face and made him lunge sideways. Thomas held, dug his heels, swore, then soothed. "Easy, easy, boy. We're almost there." The world narrowed to the 30 yards between him and the barn door. The funnel now filled half his peripheral vision. A churning, dirty, alive thing, power and hunger made visible. Somewhere to his right, a gate ripped off its hinges and sailed like a toy. Somewhere behind him, a cottonwood cracked. He did not look. He reached the barn, shoved Valor inside, slammed the door half shut, then yanked the lead free to tie him in the interior tie ring. The stallion whirled, eyes rolling, nostrils red with wind and dirt. The barn boomed as the first outflow hit it. The roof complained. Dust blew under the door in a long, low breath. "Stay," Thomas said, one hand on Valor's neck, feeling the tremor in muscle and bone. "Stay, you'll be all right." He wanted the cellar. He wanted the dug-in concrete he had poured for days like this. But the funnel was on them now. The air pressure dropped like someone had opened a door to space. His ears popped. The wind became one sound, a full-throated bellow. The barn shook. He looked at Valor. He could not leave him. He threw the lead around the interior post twice and tied a quick release knot he could undo blind. The stall doors rattled. Juniper screamed from the next stall. The geldings in the front pen hammered at the boards, wanting in, wanting out, not knowing. "Hold." Thomas said to the wood, to the rope, to the animal, to the day. Then the tornado hit. It did not brush. It struck. The whole barn lurched sideways an inch, then another. Nails shrieked in old boards. The world outside went gray-white with flying dirt. The sound was beyond loud, a roar that lived in his chest, in his teeth, in the hollow of his skull. He threw his arms over Valor's neck and buried his face in the horse's mane and held on. Silence after a tornado is not silence. It is a high whistling emptiness, the breath drawn in after a scream. The barn still stood. That was the first miracle. The roof had lost some tin. One of the north windows was gone. Dust hung in the air in a thick, panicked cloud. The horses blew and stamped and shook. Thomas lifted his head very slowly. "You all right?" he said, not sure if the words were for him or for Valor. The stallion blew hard, flanks heaving, eyes still big, but he was upright. No blood, no obvious break. Her gash on the shoulder where something had clipped him, already starting to weep. The rope had held. The post had held. The barn had held. Thomas untied the knot with shaking fingers and ran to the front of the barn. He forced the door open against debris. The yard was no longer the yard. The old cottonwood was down, snapped off 10 feet up and laid across the drive like a giant sleeping animal. The equipment shed had lost its south wall. The water trough in the front pen was on its side 30 feet away. The fence on the east had disappeared. And beyond, in a path maybe 50 yards wide, the pasture lay flat, grass-combed, dirt-scoured. Everything in that strip pointing the same direction, northeast. He stepped out, boots crunching glass from the window. The air smelled of wet earth and sap and something metallic. Storm smell. Destruction smell. Far off, the funnel moved away, thinner now, still twisting, heading toward another field, another family's worry. The sky behind it was that strange bruised green that only comes when the atmosphere has been stirred down to its old bones. He pivoted back toward the barn. The geldings were wild-eyed but unhurt. Juniper's stall door had sprung. She stood half out, rope stretched to the limit, pawing. He calmed her, reset the latch, ran his hands over legs and shoulders as fast and as thorough as he could, Then he went back to Valor. The stallion was moving funny. Not lame, not three-legged, but with a tightness through his barrel and a stiff set to his neck. When Thomas ran his hand over the right shoulder, he found the cut, shallow, long, more scrape than puncture. He found no other bleeding, but Valor's breathing was still too fast. His eyes still too bright, shock, adrenaline, fear. "You did good," Thomas said, pressing his forehead briefly to the horses. "You did good, old man." He mixed electrolytes in the clean bucket, offered water, then left the stallion to settle while he checked the rest of the place. The house had lost shingles. A window on the north side was gone. The porch swing lay upside down in the yard, but the walls were there. The chimney stood. The propane tank had not moved. For a storm like that, for a visible funnel, for a hit that close, it was more mercy than he had any right to. He walked the pasture. He picked up bits of tin, of branch, of somebody else's mailbox with a number he did not know. In the flattened strip, the grass had been peeled back to dirt. A piece of his own roof lay crumpled like paper. A dead rabbit lay where it had been thrown. Tornadoes did not negotiate. When he circled back to the barn again, the dust had begun to settle. Valor was quieter, but now that the terror had dropped, the pain was showing itself. The stallion shifted, lifted one front leg, set it down, lifted it again. Not foot, shoulder. That scrape had more under it than blood. Thomas fetched clean rags, warm water, antiseptic. He cleaned the cut, talked the whole time, nothing fancy, just human voice in a room that had just tried to become sky. Valor flinched but did not strike. He let the man tend him. By late afternoon, the sun came out like nothing had happened. The air was cool behind the front. The wind slowed to its ordinary opinionated self. Neighbors started calling. "You all right over there? Saw it go past you. Need a hand?" Thomas answered each, said he was fine, said the barn stood, said he'd check fences, said yes, maybe tomorrow, yes, thanks, yes. It was close. He did not say the thing he was thinking. It had missed them by the width of a pasture. It had hit them enough to remind them what could be taken. That night he bedded Valor deeper than usual. He left the stall open to the inside of the barn so the stallion could move a little. He watched him. He saw the stiffness in the right shoulder, the way he had to think about lowering his head to the bucket. He saw the way he was awake, too awake, every creak of the barn making his skin tremble. Storms leave noise behind. In the small hours, when the house was dark and the moon had not yet risen, the phone buzzed on the bedside table. "It was Ames, heard you got clipped," the vet said. "You need me to run out, we're upright," Thomas said. "Barn lost some tin. Fence is gone on the east. House is fine. I got one horse took a hit to the shoulder. No puncture. Bleeding stopped. But he's tight, keep him in," Ames said. "Watch for swelling. Cold if you can. I can be there first light." "Thanks, Doc." "Get some sleep," Ames said, knowing he would not. He went back out before dawn. The yard was a new place in half-light. Things lay where things did not used to lay. Lines were different. Edges were torn. But the horses blew steam in the cold and blinked at him like any other day. Living insists Valor stood when he approached. That was good. He stepped forward slow. That was less good. The shoulder had puffed a little, the skin warm. "Yeah," Thomas said. "All right. We'll get you sorted." He held the stallion's head, murmuring, while he pressed the cold pack he had rigged from a towel and ice. Valor flinched, then leaned into it, eyes closing for a breath. Outside, the sky was clear as glass. Inside, he could still hear wind. When Ames got there, he ran practiced hands over muscle and bone. "Soft tissue," he said. "Impact, no break." "Lucky, lucky," Thomas repeated, running a hand down Valor's neck. "Keep him quiet a few days. No turnout. Hand walk if he tolerates. Pain management. Watch his breathing." He was breathing fast in the storm, Thomas said. "It scared him, scares all of us," Ames said. "But some hold it in the body longer." When the vet left, the ranch settled into that odd humming state of after. After storm. After break. After almost. You check everything twice. You listen for damage hidden. You learn the new silhouette of the place. You see out of the corner of your eye, the dark column rolling over the field even when it is not there anymore. Valor did not go down. He did not lose his appetite. He did, however, lose something harder to name. It was in his eye that night when Thomas came to check water. It was in the way he stood, head turned toward the open door, watching the sky even though the sky was empty. He was on guard, still fighting a wind that had already gone. Thomas stood beside him in the stall and leaned on the wall. He knew that look. He had worn it himself after the truck accident that took Claire. Sky can hit land, roads can turn, days can split. Tornado, truck, phone call, loss, same shape, different weather. "You're here," he said to the stallion low. "You stayed. That's what matters." The horse flicked an ear but did not pull his gaze from the door. Outside, the coyotes found their voice again. The next day, he tried to turn Valor out in the small pen near the barn, just to let him smell air that was not filtered through walls. The stallion walked out on the line, ears forward, eyes scanning every muscle alive. Then the wind lifted, just a little, caught the ragged edge of tin on the shed, and made it rattle. Valor spooked so hard he almost pulled Thomas off his feet. "Whoa, easy, it's gone," Thomas said. But the stallion was dancing now, neck arched, tail flagging, eyes huge. The rattle had been too much like the roaring. The bright day too much like the day before the sky touched down. The open space too open. He led him back inside, so it was not just muscle. It was memory. For the next week he kept Valor in, walking him in the aisle when the barn was quiet, talking to him while he repaired fence and roof around him. He wanted the horse to see healing while he healed. Boards being set back, tin being nailed down, order out of wind. He worked on the east fence first. It had taken the worst of the twist. Posts yanked, wire gone, whole sections laid flat in the path. He sank new posts deeper, tamped the dirt hard, strung new wire with more staples. He worked slow. Healing is slow work when you are doing it on purpose. Valor watched from the barn door, head turned, ears flicking with each hammer blow. The first time the post driver rang, he tensed. The third time less. By the 10th post, he was bored. Boredom is a kind of cure. In the evenings, when the light laid long over the wounded pasture, Thomas took a folding chair out into the aisle and sat where Valor could stand near without feeling cornered. He talked about the storm, about the way the creek had jumped, but not cut, about the neighbor's roof they would go help fix, about the old stories he used to tell Claire, about the foal he had once found in the rain and promised not to leave, about Willow Creek and the sign at the lane that still read "No horse turned away" even after the wind had tried to carry it off. Sometimes he read aloud from the old notebook, the same lines: "Don't hurry the quiet, carry water with 2 hands, stay for the endings." He said them the way you say things you need to hear yourself. Valor's breathing slowed. The skin tremors lessened. The stallion began little by little to let his head drop when Thomas was near. One night, with the wind completely still and the moon just a slice over the cottonwoods, he even sighed, a deep from-the-guts breath that is the horse's version of putting a burden down. There was still the sky, though the first small storm to come through after the tornado was barely a shower. A modest thing. A line of grey, a sprinkle, a low rumble far away. The geldings barely looked up. Juniper twitched an ear no more. Valor froze. His whole body said, "Not this again." Thomas was in the barn before the first drop hit the roof. "It's not like that," he said, hand on the stallion's neck. "Listen, it's different." He spoke over the rain on tin, over the mild wind, over the memory. He described what was happening. A shower, a front. No rotation, no roar. The roof is holding. The walls are holding. We are holding. He did not know if the horse understood the words. He knew the horse understood the tone. Valor's eyes, wide and glass-bright at the first patter, softened. His head lowered a hand's width. He did not run the stall. He did not strike. He shook once and stood. "You're here," Thomas said again, and now it was like a refrain. After 2 weeks, the shoulder swelling went down. The stride evened. Hames came back, ran hands over healed tissue, and nodded. "He's good," the vet said. "You can turn him out. Start small." Small meant the pen. Then the front pasture. Then finally the backfield again. The morning he opened the gate to the backfield, the sky was so clean it shone. The grass, matted in the tornado's path, had already begun to stand again, stubborn as life. The broken cottonwood lay where it had fallen, a monument to air. The rest of the place looked like itself, only wiser. Thomas led Valor through the gate and unhooked the lead. The stallion stood a moment, blowing, ears forward, tasting the air. This was the same field he had crossed the day the sky had tried to take him. The same slope. The same shed. The same wind, only gentler. He expected him to charge, to run the fear off. Valor did not. He walked. Slow, deliberate, planting each foot like it belonged there. He lifted his head and watched the horizon for a long time. Then finally, when nothing in the sky moved the wrong way. He broke into an easy lope, circling the field once, twice, just to prove to the world and himself that muscle and spirit had both stayed. Thomas leaned on the fence and watched, feeling that ache behind the ribs that is not pain and not pride, but somewhere between. The tornado had put hands on his place, on his animals, on his mourning. It had not taken the part of the stallion that mattered. In the weeks that followed, stories traveled the way they always do. Folks in town said the ranch out on the East Ridge had been hit, but that the man there had kept all his horses safe. Old Boy rode one into the barn with the twister on him, they said. Held on, held the horse too. They said the stallion was never the same after. They said the stallion was finer after. Depends who you asked. What was true was this. On storm days now, Valor stood closer to the barn. He watched the sky more. When thunder rolled, he looked to the door. But he did not run. He did not break fence. He did not bolt for a place that did not exist. He knew now that there was a building and a man and a pair of hands that would stay. His body remembered fear. His spirit remembered survival. One evening late, when the air had gone soft and pink and the scar on the cottonwood was glowing in the last light, Thomas took his notebook out to the porch. He opened to a clean page and wrote a single line. The wind can knock the roof, but it cannot evict the spirit. He sat there a while, listening to the small sounds of a place still there. Crickets, a horse tearing grass, water in the trough settling. Far off, a train mourning its way through the lowlands. Above him, the sky perfectly behaved. Later, he walked to the barn one more time. Habit, love, both. Valor stood in his stall, not because he had to, but because he had chosen it tonight. Head over the door, eyes calm, the wound on his shoulder now only a pale, clean mark. A weather story in skin. You did good, Thomas said. He reached up and laid his hand between the stallion's eyes. The horse closed them. Outside, across the pasture, the path the tornado had mowed through the grass was still visible, a faint, straight scar that would fade with spring. Inside, in the stall, in the barn, in the animal in front of him, the path it had tried to cut had already begun to close. Storms come fast. Healing comes slow, but both come. And on that ranch, hit by wind and spared by inches, one stallion's spirit had stayed standing.